If you don't have your health, what do you have?
You are a functional medicine doctor.
Join us as we blend modern and ancient wisdoms to be well now.
The 10 Commandments of Health, brought to you by the Be Well Now podcast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dummar.
I'm Nick, the Curious Patient. We are back with the top 5 or bottom 5?
Either way you look at it, is it half empty or half full? But these are 5 nonetheless, 1 through 5.
It is half. We are here now, and we hope that you're being well now. And the philosophy here is obviously wellness, living in the present moment, being a little goofy.
Sure.
We're going to put the other 10 Commandments of Health in the link to this podcast. So if you're this far, which is not that far, please please subscribe. We normally don't beg you for this stuff, but a call to action. Hey, it's been about a year of this podcast, and we could use a couple subs.
Yeah, if you want to support us, if you want to see us do more of this or more of these type of podcasts, like and subscribe. Also, email us. Send in a recommendation of something you might want to hear us talk about.
The Be Well Now podcast has an email address, bewellnowpodcast@gmail.com. We're going to get to the top 5.
The 5 remaining commandments. Let's go over the 10, shall we?
Let's do it.
The ones we went over last time, including the ones we'll talk about today. So nature has the answers, and we talked about that, and we had some really good things to discuss regarding compounds from nature and our ability to actually borrow healing capacity within our own environment from plants. And then we also talked about the ability of nature to help us on more of a mental health aspect as well.
Have a health professional and know your numbers.
Yes, and that's a good one. Now,
what's the use of a health professional? I mean, do you know anyone who does this? Or?
Do I know anyone? I don't know, man. That's going to be hard.
What an overrated
It's hard to find someone.
career.
Do you really? Do people even work in this field? Yeah. So find a health professional in the field of functional medicine or integrative medicine who has a keen interest in, I would say, natural or an approach that is more natural to care. So number 8, script and listen your way to health. This was, I think, one you were very interested in. You had some comments and suggestions for us.
I think that words are so powerful. I have a really good friend who just every time I see him, he's like, man, life is so damn good. He always says that to me. And it's infectious. And so there's more to this, scripting your way to health, but words have power. And if you want to know more about that, the description has that link.
Is there a link? There's a link to our previous podcast.
Indeed there is.
Relax, play, and enjoy is number 7.
Beautiful.
So important to relax. I think that goes without even an explanation. Take some time for yourself. Take a break from whatever it is that you're doing. Be willing to change things up. Relax, play, enjoy.
Does playing online blackjack count as play?
If it's a break from what you're doing, I would say go for it.
Okay. I've never played it, but I was just being goofy. I played today.
Did you play blackjack?
No, not blackjack.
You were dancing.
Dude, I'm a dancer now.
Yeah.
I've never been a dancer in my life.
You're like the pro. You show up and, they throw out the flower petals for you and everything.
You just got to play, guys. Sing, dance, play, whatever you got to do.
Fun stuff.
Be outside, smile and laugh.
Why don't you read number 6 for us?
Number 6 is people are the world's greatest asset.
Yeah, remember when you're dealing with people throughout the day, especially when you're in a demanding service-oriented profession, remember people are an asset. And we should treat people like an asset. But also if you're in the capacity where you're receiving service, remember that those people are taxed, they're worked, sometimes overworked. They're an asset. They're an asset to a corporation, but they can be an asset to you as far as how good your experience is in that place. So figure out a way to get the best out of them.
There's more to talk about there. There's so much more. I just want to keep us on track for the top 5. And this one's great. I love this one. Treat yourself like a pro athlete or a high-end sports car. And the same friend, one time he asked me what I had for breakfast, and I told him, he's like, dang, you eat like a king.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember telling you that because he has some health issues, and you were saying, but you should treat yourself. It was a healthy breakfast, right?
Yeah.
And you said
it was like avocado or something.
Like avocado, eggs, like pecans. I think I had some roasted zucchini in it. I mean, just like a delicious breakfast, you know?
Yeah.
To me anyway. And you were saying, but that's how you should treat yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, treat yourself like a king. Treat yourself like a high-end sports car, right? That's how it needs to be. And so often what we do is we're far more willing to put the highest grade gasoline or the quality oil, you know, or get the top end cleaning supplies for our vehicle, which is great. And I support that. I think we should. I don't think that's a problem. I think the problem is there's a major disconnect because we do that for something that is inanimate, right? And we don't do those things for ourselves, which is the experiences that we have, completely organic in nature. The relationships that we have with people are dependent on the quality of health that we experience. And so if we want quality relationship, if we want quality interactions with other individuals, then we need to treat ourselves a lot better. We need to treat ourselves like a high-end sports car. So really, when you look at what food am I going to buy? Well, I go to the store. I'm going to go shopping. Am I looking always for just the discount item or for the lowest, cheapest item, the cardboard boxed items, the packaged frozen goods items, because I think that they're cheapest and they're going to be the most convenient and easiest for me? Well, convenience may be a factor, and you have to play that in. But the reality is you should treat yourself like a high-end sports car and say, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this picture? Am I putting poor quality oil? Am I putting poor quality gasoline in my body, right? Obviously the gasoline not being meant for your body. Quality food being meant for your body. That's the analogy there. So can we include more produce, more quality meats, more quality fat in our diet and get out the cheap products that are highly processed, that are designed basically to be produced as quickly, cheaply, and easily as possible without quality of health in mind.
So none of these top 10 rules have food in them. Is this really a food rule packaged differently, or is this more than food?
Oh, it's more than food, but food is definitely one aspect of it. Now, each of these 10, you could probably play food into, right? You know,
because you were saying if you follow these naturally, what you put in your body is just going to come as a result of this.
Exactly. It's a matter of self-respect. These are recommendations or commandments that point at the way you should treat yourself, right? They point at how to take care of yourself. And if you can wrap your mind and get your way of living around these commandments, then you'll recognize that your entire life will change. Your health will improve, your memory, your focus, your concentration, your relationships will improve. All of these things will become better as a result. If you treat yourself like a high-end sports car, how do you dress? If you treat yourself like a high-end sports car, how do you groom? If you go out on a date, right, and you're trying to have some social interaction, how do you prepare for that date if you treat yourself like a high-end sports car? It's completely different than if you just feed yourself junk and cardboard box type of meals, right? If you're going to treat yourself completely differently. So it applies in our relationships. It applies in our food. It applies in everything that we do in life.
The whole treat yourself like a pro athlete thing is interesting. I been trying to get up real early in time to like meditate.
Yes.
You know, that's my thing. And I'm not saying, oh, look at me, I meditate. Getting up to try to find this time, I have to get up early. Otherwise, like the day just gets ahead. So I'll make time for it. But then I find myself sleep deprived. And I every time I have like a bad day, I look back on it and I'm like, yeah, I didn't get enough sleep. So lately, this is like Nick just telling you what happened in the last couple of weeks. But I have this motto at night. It's called protect the 7.
Yeah.
I don't know why
7
the
hours.
7, but it's like, I'm protecting the 7 hour. No, come hell or high water. I'm going to make sure I get to 7 hours in time to meditate in the morning. And it's a big difference. If I'm under 7, and I know the numbers are all different for everybody, but it's like when I'm trying to mess around with 5.5, 6 hours of sleep, it's different. It's different. So anyway, I think that has nothing to do with food, but like the ramifications of your day, if you can get to bed on time, there's like 7 things after the sleep that you can go back to and be like, oh, but this happened because I did or didn't get enough sleep.
Absolutely.
And getting enough sleep, there's 7 steps before that to get you in place to get to bed on time.
To be ready.
So it's all a cascading of the bigger picture is just like treat yourself like a pro athlete.
Yeah, close out the day properly, be prepared for bed, settle in, don't just be racing to bed, don't eat right before bed, all these different types of things we've talked about that are going to make for more quality sleep so that you have a better day tomorrow, right? You're going to have a better day, which I think this brings up our next one as well, which is embrace your creative power.
How do I do that?
So embracing your creative power, well, one of the ways, first of all, is creativity. Creativity comes by listening and acting and doing, right? Creativity comes in moments, sometimes in surges, sometimes in rushes, right? We just feel the surge of creativity. If you look at a professional athlete, they'll have game after game, training after training after training after training. And that we wouldn't say that that's their creative moments per se. But then you see them do something magical in a game. And that's incredibly creative. It's a moment where they kind of let go of what's happening around them and they just hone into their skill set. And they're just one with it. They're just moving and going. There's a book written about flow, being in the flow, being in the essentially intimate connection of your skill set. And when you're in the flow, there's a state of being, a state of more like happiness or satisfaction with where you are. And so creativity comes in those moments. You'll have sometimes we call them inspiration, floods of thoughts that are, I need to write this down, or this would be a great book title, or I should start this new business, right? All of these things can come to a person who focuses on their craft, and then allows themselves the opportunity to better themselves.
Okay, but how do I do that?
So one way that we do it ultimately is meditation. So meditation.
So you can become more creative by meditating?
Absolutely. By taking a moment away, by stepping away for a time, right? And just giving yourself a space of saying, okay, let's unwind for a second here and let's just tap into who I am, right? That flow is we're practicing it completely away from, say, our game or our day. That same meditation, sometimes when you get into a meditation, you really get into a flow, right? You get into a moment where you're like, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty light. And
a moment. But I feel like most of the time you're fighting off thoughts, and that is meditation. And that's beautiful too. And sometimes you could sit there and stew about something, not meditating. Right. Although, what is meditating? We could have that conversation. But if you're intentionally trying to focus on the breath, maybe most of the time you're thinking, even if you're coming back to your breath and you're thinking. I find that the things I think about, sometimes I can work them out in that space so that I know what to do and I'm calmer about it once I get off the cushion.
So you're using the creativity because you're breathing through it, right? You're settling yourself down for a minute and then you're able to take those moments. But what you're also going to notice is by practicing that, so this is like let's say the practice of a high-end athlete, a pro athlete. Their practice and their meditation might be throwing free throws and doing 1,000, doing 5,000, doing 10,000. I mean, they're doing this repetitively, right? And if you think they don't have moments where they're like self-reflecting or thinking or trying to be like, well, what's going on? Or the day slips in, right? Or conversation they had. Their objective is to try to filter in and say, okay, I want to focus just on this free throw. And that's what we're trying to do with meditation as well. And it's okay, right? It's okay to allow whatever comes to come in meditation and to move it through. But ideally, we're going to have those moments, again, of creative thought or of creative, like you said, solution resolving, right? You'll find resolution to certain problems.
But that's not even the goal.
No.
The goal is just to be there with my breath.
It's just
notice
to be.
the breath. And then I'm noticing all the thoughts that come up. And instead of just like overly stressing about them, lately I've just been watching them like, what's up with this? So okay, what am I going to do when I get off the cushion? And then I thought I was going to do something else. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense.
So what does it mean to embrace your creative power?
I don't know.
It almost means, no, listen to what you're saying, to what we're saying, right? It almost means to let things be, to become aware of your current state or of the space that you're in. Just to acknowledge it, to see what's around you, right? So I saw this really cool statement, and I thought, I need to do that. That is so true. So it was about a soccer player, and this younger soccer player leaned up to this older, very, very high profile soccer player and said, hey, you're obviously further along in this program than I am, and I'm working to be where you are, or close to you someday. What advice would you give to me on the field? What should I do? And he said, walk more, run less. Walk more because you see more. That's what he said. Right? And he's an athlete, right? You think these athletic performance, there's so much that you have to do. You have to be running, you have to be urgent, I'm coaching a kid right now, and I see kind of the anxiousness in his movements. He's always busy, always trying to move. I'm like, settle down, just observe and make a decision. That's all it's about. Just observe and then make a decision. And sometimes we get so nervous that we're not doing, or we feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do something, and we're stewing and we're frantic internally just as much as we are externally, that the things that we end up doing are not necessarily as efficient nor as healthy for our bodies if we were just to step back, observe, and then act. So when I was driving home, I noticed, hold on a second, I'm going to pull my car over. So I pulled my car over. So I'm going to walk the rest of the way home, and then I'll walk back and get my car at some point. But I just wanted to test this out. What do I feel when I'm walking the rest of the way through my neighborhood? I talked to some people. We waved. More people waved. We engaged more. We were able to stop at 1 yard and just chat over the fence for about 5-10 minutes. All of these different interactions that I was able to have and engage in, that when I'm in my car speeding through, so to speak, right, or rushing by, we're not able to engage in. So embracing your creative power, so much of it is about just being still, just allowing yourself to step back for a moment and observe and then act. Because you know how to act. You know what steps to take. In fact, so many times people come into my office and they're frustrated with themselves. And I'm like, why are you frustrated with yourself? They're frustrated because they see a state of health they're not achieving. Well, how is it that you see a state of health? Like, what is this you're not achieving, and why? So then we have to just coach them through this process of allowing their bodies to get there. And oftentimes what people want to do is they say, well, if you can give me this pill, or if you can just give me these things to get me there now, I want to be healthy now. And I don't have the patience to get to the point where I feel like I want to be, because I just need to be there now. And that's half the battle. That's most of the frustration and the irritation, is the inability for them to allow themselves the opportunity to take the time to creatively move through the process of healing.
Everything is always changing.
Yes.
Never staying the same.
Which is why we need to embrace it.
Which brings us to
if we fight against change, if you fight against change, I'm sorry, that's a really, really horrible idea.
So break through the cliches and make this work for me, because I've heard it a million times. Make friends with change.
Embrace change. Well, so here's the deal. Change is always happening. Your body's red blood cells have a lifespan of 140 days. So that means every red blood cell in your body in 140 days, it's, what is that? 3.5, 4 months are going to be completely turned over. So your capacity to exchange nutrients, your ability to be able to heal tissue, all of those things are going to be significantly impacted within 3 to 4 months. Significantly as in all of them, right? So you have the capacity, your body, to completely turn over all of its red blood cells within 3 to 4 months. The ability of your body to change and to create some newness of health or to point itself in a different direction is huge. The capacity is great. Your opportunity is sitting right in front of you. You're constantly tearing things down. So your body has blastocytes, right? It has osteoclasts and osteoblasts. And these are cells that build up bone and cells that tear down bone. And our body is constantly doing it with bone too. Bone cells are being torn down and gotten rid of, and then they're being built up. So we're in a constant state of flux with our bones as well. The cells of our body turn over just like our fingernails grow, and we trim them and then they die, right? They grow, we trim them, they're gone, okay? Every cell in our body does this. So again, now think 3 to 4 months. If you can hang on to a pattern for 3 to 4 months, what you've done now is you've given yourself the opportunity to change and program every single cell of your body as a new cell to a new patterned way of living or consuming.
Whoa. That's wild.
Yes. 3 to 4 months. Okay. Now that's
not 7 days, 21 days.
No.
To me, 3 to 4 months, cells changing over. To me, that says if you do the work, things really could transform.
It will change. Give yourself 3 to 4 months. Now that's just to initiate that process. That's just to say, okay, if I hold this up for 3 to 4 months, now I'm pointed in this direction. What you're going to experience after that 3 to 4 months is the result, right? The result of putting the quality in, the result of digging deep, right? And the result of like, oh, I went through this craving and that craving, but now you're beyond it. Okay? That's going to happen beyond 3 to 4 months. So embrace change. It's your body's constantly changing. The world around you is changing. It needs to be something that we embrace with joy, that we take in with excitement. Even our relationships change. You may have met somebody and gotten into a relationship, and when they met you, they said, "Oh, these are my favorite things." Are they still their favorite things? For some people it might be, but for others it's not. Okay? In some relationships, they hold really steady and hard to traditional core values. But maybe partway through that relationship, one part of the partnership says, I don't know if I buy into this anymore. So are you willing to embrace that? Are you willing to say, oh, we can have a conversation about what's happening here and decide whether or not we can continue forward together or if we're going to have to part ways? Either of those could be a correct decision, staying together or parting ways. Both of them could be correct, right? But the fact of the matter is, you need to do that together, and your approach to it needs to be, okay, things have changed, you've changed. How are we going to do this so that it's as harmonious a decision for both of us or for all of us as possible? So the more we can embrace and understand change and allow ourselves to change and allow others to change, the less friction we're going to have in life.
What about the whole idea of people never change? You can't make someone change.
Well, you can't make someone change. That's for certain. You can't make someone change. People always change. People are always changing is probably a better way of saying that. But I do understand the sentiment as far as people never change. There are absolutely certain things that people keep as a principle, right? And they decide to stick to them. Well, it's like, well, okay, that's fine. If you decide to stick to them, but that someone deciding to stick to a principle does not negate you or someone else who might be in a relationship with that someone from taking their opportunity to embrace change. And if that occurs and that brings that relationship into conflict, then either that individual needs to come to come into reconciling whether or not they're going to continue with that principle or they're going to let it flex somehow for the sake of that relationship.
I like number 2 a lot.
Well, let's go for it. You do like number 2.
It made me smile.
This is your favorite one.
I did it last week. I didn't want to do this, and I did it anyway. And your little adage, your commandment, made me smile.
Stuck with you.
And I'd like you to read it now. And then
well, hopefully
it almost feels like a paradox or something.
Yeah, it's like you try to work it out in your brain, but here's the point. Here's the commandment. You don't have to do anything you don't want, but some things you must do you may not like. Okay, so figure that one out.
And I didn't want to do it, but I had to do it, and I didn't like it. But I didn't have to do it.
You chose to do it.
But I knew that I must do it.
Correct.
But then why didn't I have to do it? Because I could do whatever the damn hell I want.
Exactly.
But I knew that I must do this so that blah blah blah.
You had a commitment.
Like it.
You had a commitment to a higher purpose. That was why you did it. That's why you must do it, you could say, right? That's why you must do it. It's because you're committed to a principle, to something of higher value. And when you're committed to a principle of higher value, that's something that you must do, even though you may not like it, right? So what's a principle of higher value?
Yeah, give me an example of this one.
So a principle of higher value, we could say, all right, it even, since we've brought up eating, let's just stick with that for a minute. It could be eating. A principle of higher value could be not eating foods that have large ingredients or labels listed to them, right? So that could be a principle that you have, like, okay, if this food comes with a significant label or certain additives, I don't want to consume it. Okay? And so you get over to a party and they have all this stuff there and there's all these treats and this table, and you could look at that and you could say, well, I can eat that. Of course. In fact, not only can I eat that, but I used to eat that. I would eat that. And everything prior, in the way that I would behave, I would consume these things. But right now, I don't want to say no. In fact, I want to eat that with everything that is a part of me. All of my habits, all my intentions, everything says, yeah, this is how we have fun at a party. This is how we enjoy socially, right? For a lot of people, it's alcohol. Right? Oh, well, I just socially drink. Okay. All right. And so everything says to you, yes, it's okay and I should do it. But then you say, you know what? I'm not going to. I must not, because I've chosen to do other things. I've chosen not to consume those. And you don't like it. You don't like making that choice, especially at first. But what I've found is that when you make those choices, it gets easier. Usually the first one is the hardest.
I'm even thinking about just like being at work.
Let's hear it.
I don't know. This is just a random example. I thought I was like, you don't have to show up to work today. You don't have to do the thing your boss says.
You don't.
But there are certain things you must do that you may not like. And sometimes your must is your duty that day at work.
Absolutely.
You don't have to do it, but like...
But there are consequences.
But certain things you must do you may not like. So it's like, I don't know. It still feels like a paradox to me, but...
You're acknowledging
I like the
in
dance
life,
aspect of it, of You're weaving through it all.
Exactly. You're saying, okay, what's my best way through here?
Yep.
I may not like work.
I don't have to do this today.
I feel like I don't, yeah. And I really could call in or do something. It's like, but what am I going to do? What I must do is I must stay committed. I must be honest. I must have integrity, right? Those are the musts that you're choosing to do. If you choose to act outside of integrity with yourself, so this is like, I call up when I'm not sick and I say I'm sick just so I can miss a day because I just feel tired and quite frankly, I don't want to come to work, right? That's acting outside of integrity. That catches up with you. That will catch up with you. It's important to act in integrity. That's what we must do. We must act in integrity or we will be shown why we should have. It will happen. And so you don't have to do anything you don't want to. That's the truth. And I say that to my kids a lot too. Like, you don't have to do anything you don't want to. But you live in a family. You know? I have 5 boys and 1 girl. I have 6 kids. We live in a family. We have fruit on our trees in the back. We have lawn that needs to be mowed. We have laundry that needs to be done. We have dishes that need to be done, right? And all of those tasks can't be done by one person. As much as a Wonder Woman supermom might hope to achieve it all, it's not possible. And so as a family, we must do things in that community that we may not like, right? And we can absolutely choose not to do them, but it's going to affect that community. It's going to affect that community a lot. And so we can choose. We don't have to do anything we don't want to. But again, that's when it comes down to choice. No, you don't have to do it. It's your chore. It's your job. It's going to pile up. It might not get done. You're going to have stinky clothes. What are you going to wear to school? We want you to be, we want you to show up as well presented as possible. Do your best. Have respect for yourself. Going through all the list again. So what are you going to choose? What are you going to choose? Well, my experience has been that sometimes the kids do choose not to do things.
Yeah.
That's just your experience, right? That's how it is. And I think every parent would agree. Sometimes kids choose not to do things. Well, then what happens after that? You can only let it go so far as a parent, letting them be a part of the community and the society that you've created as a parent before they basically are coerced. They have to be influenced a little more significantly, right? And so we try to do the best we can, but what I found with the discussions that I've had with my kids is that eventually they recognize their role and their responsibility. They own up to it. They end up doing it, even if it's whining and crying a little bit, but the job gets done. And, we're all better off for it.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are to the number 1.
Here we go. We made
commandment of health here on the Be Well Now podcast. Be open to the views and opinions of others. And that sounds so basic and so not Be Well Now podcast topic relevant. And yet, boy, if we really live in this society, we realize that that's a tough one.
Everyone thinks their opinion is the most important, which is one reason you should be willing to listen to it. Okay? So if you listen to someone's opinion and you value it, you show that, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, I see. Right? And you're willing to hear their opinion, and then you're willing to explore their opinion. That gives a significant amount of credibility to you being able to state your opinion. Does that make sense? So if you're willing to be open to someone else's views and someone else's opinion, it doesn't mean you have to change your view and your opinion. It just means you both need to be willing to hear each other's views and each other's opinions. And what I've found, when I hear and I'm willing to listen to friends and their opinions, or even people who are not necessarily friends, but we're at a function, and I hear their opinion on health, or I hear their opinion on vaccines or on something else. I listen to it and I go, I attempt to learn from that. I want to be a changed creature as a result of listening to an opinion and rolling it over in my mind. I don't want to be clutching my opinion so tightly that I'm left all alone, right? Here, holding on to my opinion while everyone else flocks somewhere else. That's not the point of an opinion. Now, it is important if you feel like you have a truth and you feel like you've stumbled on a truth or discovered something you believe is true. It is important for you to state that. But what you'll find is as you begin to state it, others will give you feedback on what they think, right? Others will give you feedback, and you'll be able to roll that over again and go, do I need to change it a little bit? Am I right, but just need to tweak things, or was I completely off? Do I need to move in a different position? So it's so critical, because what is the result if we choose not to be open to the opinions and views of others?
I don't know, but when I try to open myself up to the opinions of others and just think, listen and learn, and just be an active listener. But if I don't agree with it, the wildest thing happens. My body starts to shut down. Like, I immediately make a judgment on it, like pretty early on, which I think there's some utility there, and I don't know what it is, of like
a protection
of my time.
Yeah.
Like, I could tell if someone's a talker, if I don't agree with them, if I don't like where it's going, and I'll just shut down and try to protect my time or my energy. And I find myself, just totally shutting down, or just like, it's something that happens deep within the body when I don't like what I'm listening to. And I can just tell after trying to give it a chance that I'm not going to agree. What do I do with that?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing that you bring up, and it's true. Sometimes we find ourselves in those moments where we go, whoa. Well, number one, we need to find out, is it wasting my time? What are you there for?
Yeah.
Because the reality is, it might be a waste of your time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth to it too.
You might be showing that you don't value your own time. And that might be a good lesson for you to say, okay, I've got to figure out how to wrap this up and flee, get away from here. There isn't, I don't think there's a set rule. I don't know a set rule, but I will say, if you feel like you're wasting your time, it is, you should consider whether you are and why it is you've decided to feel like or think that you might be wasting your time.
Is it a waste of your time, or was your time ill spent somewhere else? Like, maybe you're supposed to be right here, right now,
listening to the opinion of someone else.
Yeah, and you just don't want to be.
Mm-hmm. And maybe this other person listening, or this other person telling you their opinion, maybe it's setting a stage for them to be heard, right? And maybe they need to be heard. People so often are in a situation where, nobody seems to listen, and nobody seems to hear the value that I have to share. And a simple word sometimes of kindness, or a recognition of where their life happens to be, sometimes that's all that matters in turning the tide from someone to be in a complete chaos, right? In a situation, even I would say potentially a situation where someone may be contemplating even taking their life. And then all of a sudden, they have an opinion, they're willing to speak out. It's kind of like a cry for help, right? It's kind of like a cry for, let's see if the world has any more use for me, right? And if you can figure out, okay, what am I supposed to do with this conversation? What am I supposed to do with this person's opinion that they seem intent on sharing with me? Again, I'm not saying it may not be a waste of your time. It may be, but that's something you need to weigh with how how important is it for me to acknowledge what is being said here and to enter into this discussion versus getting away and doing whatever it is I think is so much more important. So remember, the key here is, number one, I would say err on the side of being open to the views and opinions of others.
There's a lot to learn, even if you don't agree.
Absolutely. Every day there's a lot to learn. And even if you're a PhD, there's so much to learn. It doesn't matter how many degrees you've had. It doesn't matter how many seminars you've been to, how many continuing education credits you've had. Our industries in general, they've learned something from the past, right? I assume this is why this is implemented. Almost every industry I know requires continuing education credits on a yearly or bi-yearly basis, right? Well, why would they do that? Well, because they want you to hear the opinions and views of others. They want you to hear facts, and they want you to hear new stuff that's coming out in your industry and decide whether or not you need to bring that on in your place of work or business or your personal profession. So in so many ways, it needs to be a more pertinent part of our way of life.
Be open to the ideas and opinions of others. That'd be a good goal.
I think so.
For the next week, until the next episode of the Be Well Now podcast.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Remember to like and subscribe. Yes, we are going to ask.
Please subscribe. Please support this podcast so we can keep spending time together talking about what I think is pretty fascinating stuff. Dr. Dummar is a busy guy, but to make these as an act of intention, and if you could help us out, that'd be amazing.
Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste.